Alan Dershowitz sat confidently in the studio chair, his voice sharp and commanding as the cameras rolled. The legal commentator, known for his fiery critiques, wasted no time in targeting Representative Jasmine Crockett. With a smirk, he leaned forward and declared, frankly, her law degree doesn't hold the weight she thinks it does. Experience is one thing, but credentials matter, and hers simply don't impress. The host raised an eyebrow, sensing the tension rising. A murmur rippled through the live studio audience. Dershowitz had drawn his line in the sand, ready to challenge Crockett's credibility on national television. But Jasmine Crockett didn't flinch. She adjusted her microphone, locked eyes with Dershowitz, and leaned back with calm composure. She was waiting for the perfect moment to strike back, not with anger, but with precision. The stage was set. Experts and viewers alike leaned closer to their screens, bracing for what was about to unfold. The host turned to Jasmine, giving her the floor. The air felt thick with anticipation. Dershowitz folded his arms, convinced she would stumble under his sharp critique. But Crockett's voice came steady and razor-sharp. Alan, I find it fascinating that someone who has built a career on courtroom theatrics suddenly questions the value of a law degree that has allowed me to serve both clients and constituents with integrity. A ripple of applause broke out from the audience. Dershowitz's smirk faltered, just slightly. Jasmine wasn't raising her voice, she didn't need to. Her calm tone carried the weight of certainty, and her words cut deeper than any insult. She leaned forward, eyes locked on him. You might dismiss my degree, but what you cannot dismiss are the wins, the cases I've taken on, and the laws I've fought to uphold. If your standard is who has made the bigger difference for the people, I'll let the public decide who stands taller in that comparison. The studio went silent for a beat. Even the host was stunned by the precision of her clapback. Dershowitz shifted in his chair, clearly caught off guard. He opened his mouth to fire back, but the momentum had already turned. Jasmine kept her gaze steady, refusing to blink first. The host leaned in, intrigued. Congresswoman Crockett, are you suggesting that experience in action outweighs credentials on paper? Jasmine smiled faintly, her confidence radiating. I'm saying that a law degree is only as valuable as the person holding it. Some use their credentials to climb ladders of prestige. I use mine to fight for justice and accountability. That, in my view, is the true measure of legal worth. The audience erupted into applause. Experts seated off-camera were nodding, impressed by the clarity of her response. Dershowitz tried to interject, but the applause drowned him out. For the first time that evening, it was clear, the narrative had shifted, and Crockett was in control. Dershowitz raised his voice, trying to reclaim the spotlight. Justice isn't about popularity contests or applause lines. It's about understanding the law at the highest level. And quite frankly, I don't see that level of expertise in your record. The words hung heavy, but Jasmine's expression never wavered. She clasped her hands on the desk and responded with surgical calm. Alan, I understand the law well enough to recognize when it's being twisted to protect the powerful instead of the people. That's where my expertise lies, in making sure the law serves those who can't afford your brand of elite defense. The crowd reacted instantly, cheers, claps, even whistles. The host struggled to maintain order, his voice rising above the noise. Ladies and gentlemen, let's keep this civil, though I must admit, Representative Crockett's point is landing strongly tonight. Cameras zoomed in on Dershowitz's face as his confident smirk gave way to visible frustration. He had underestimated her, and everyone watching knew it. Dershowitz leaned back, his tone shifting from dismissive to defensive. You may have passion, but passion doesn't win complex legal arguments. It's intellect, discipline, and mastery of the law that prevail. Jasmine tilted her head slightly, a calm smile tugging at her lips. Interesting. Because I've seen people with all the so-called mastery in the world lose touch with reality, and with the people the law is meant to protect. Passion isn't a weakness, Alan. It's the spark that ensures the law doesn't just sit on dusty bookshelves but actually improves lives. The audience broke into thunderous applause, with even a few legal experts at the panel table nodding in agreement. One analyst whispered into his microphone, "That's one of the sharpest counters I've heard in years." Dershowitz's jaw tightened. He had expected an easy victory, a quick dismissal of Crockett's credibility. Instead, he found himself cornered by her calm precision and undeniable conviction. The host sensed the rising tension and pressed further. Representative Crockett, what do you say to critics who argue that your approach to the law is more emotional than technical? Jasmine didn't hesitate. She turned toward the host, then back to Dershowitz. Emotion without foundation is chaos. But when your emotions are grounded in facts, in law, and in lived reality, they become fuel for real change. My critics confuse compassion with weakness. In truth, compassion is what gives the law its humanity. The room buzzed with energy. Cameras caught Dershowitz shaking his head, but the reaction from the crowd told a different story. She was winning them over with every word. Jasmine leaned forward, her tone firm yet calm. The danger isn't too much emotion. The danger is detachment. When lawyers detach themselves from the real people their decisions affect, justice becomes an abstract game. I refuse to play that game. The audience's applause was deafening, forcing the host to pause before continuing. Dershowitz adjusted his tie, visibly irritated. Congresswoman, you're romanticizing the law. Courts aren't about feelings, they're about rules, precedent, and structure. If you let emotion dictate, you erode the very foundation of justice. Jasmine chuckled softly, shaking her head. Alan, no one here is saying the rules don't matter. But let's be clear. Precedent has been used for decades to uphold injustice just as often as it has been used to correct it. If all we ever did was cling to precedent, then progress would be impossible. The host's eyebrows rose at her sharp retort, while the crowd leaned in, fully engaged. She continued, her tone steady but cutting. You defend the system as if it's flawless. But I live every day with constituents who feel its flaws. The law isn't holy scripture, it's a tool. And tools are meant to be reshaped when they no longer serve the people. The words landed hard. Analysts watching from the press row began scribbling furiously, already drafting headlines for the morning news cycle. The studio felt electric now, every word sparking debate across the audience. Dershowitz leaned forward, trying to recover his footing. That's a dangerous mindset, Representative. If every politician reshaped the law based on how they feel in the moment, we'd have chaos instead of order. Jasmine calmly raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. You're missing the point again, Alan. I don't reshape the law based on my feelings, I fight to reshape it based on the needs of the people. There's a difference. You call it chaos. I call it democracy at work. The host nearly dropped his pen at her precision. The crowd erupted into applause, forcing Dershowitz to wait before responding. His frustration was visible, he was no longer the professor lecturing an audience, he was the one being schooled. And Jasmine wasn't finished. She leaned in with a quiet intensity. The real chaos, Alan, is when experts sit in ivory towers, debating theory, while families suffer under laws that no longer protect them. That's the disconnect I refuse to ignore. The audience reaction was explosive, cheers, claps, and even some people standing to applaud. Dershowitz pursed his lips, realizing she had flipped the debate entirely. The host could hardly contain his excitement. Asterisk, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're witnessing something extraordinary here tonight. Asterisk, he gestured toward Dershowitz, who was visibly bristling. Asterisk, Alan, do you want to respond? Asterisk. Dershowitz leaned into his microphone, his voice edged with frustration. Asterisk, extraordinary. What I see is rhetoric. Pretty words don't win cases in the Supreme Court. Legal precision does. And let's be honest, Representative Crockett doesn't have that track record. Asterisk. The crowd gasped at the jab, but Jasmine didn't flinch. She sat upright, her eyes never leaving his. Then she delivered her counterstrike with surgical calm. Asterisk, Alan, if you want to measure worth by courtrooms, then let's also measure who those courtrooms have historically served. My record isn't about defending the privileged in high-profile cases, it's about defending the everyday person who otherwise wouldn't have a voice. Asterisk. The studio exploded with applause once again. Experts watching in the green room were stunned. One even whispered off camera, asterisk, that wasn't just a rebuttal. That was a masterclass. Asterisk. Dershowitz's confidence visibly cracked. He had entered expecting to dominate, but instead, he was being dismantled, piece by piece, on live television. Dershowitz tapped his pen against the desk, trying to hide his irritation. Asterisk, Representative, you keep framing this as a battle between the elites and the everyday person. But the law isn't about sides, it's about balance, order, and discipline. Without that, the whole system falls apart. Asterisk. Jasmine leaned forward, her tone sharper now but still controlled. Asterisk, Alan, balance only exists when both sides are truly represented. Order only exists when justice is applied equally. And discipline? Discipline without fairness is nothing more than oppression dressed up in legal language. Asterisk. The crowd gasped, then burst into applause so loud it nearly drowned out the microphones. The host had to raise his voice over the cheers. Asterisk, Representative Crockett, that's a bold statement. Asterisk. Jasmine nodded firmly. Asterisk, it's not bold. It's reality. And the reality is that too many people have been told the law isn't for them. That changes when we stop pretending credentials matter more than compassion, or that prestige matters more than purpose. Asterisk. The camera cut to Dershowitz, whose clenched jaw revealed his growing frustration. For the first time, he seemed unsure of what to say next. The host glanced between them, sensing the shift in power. Asterisk, Alan, you came here tonight questioning Representative Crockett's credentials. Do you still stand by your criticism after what we've heard? Asterisk. Dershowitz hesitated, his silence stretching longer than expected. The camera zoomed in on his face, catching the flicker of doubt in his expression. Finally, he cleared his throat. Asterisk, I stand by my position. Credentials matter. But clearly, Representative Crockett is articulate in her defense. Asterisk. It was the closest thing to a concession the audience had expected from him. Some even laughed at the faint backpedal. Jasmine seized the moment. She leaned forward, her voice calm yet unshakable. Asterisk, Alan, credentials are the beginning of a career. Integrity, courage, and service to others are what define the legacy. You have your definition of success. I have mine. And tonight, the people can judge for themselves which one actually serves justice. Asterisk. The audience erupted, this time with a standing ovation. Experts on the panel exchanged glances, realizing that Dershowitz had lost the narrative completely. The cameras panned across the audience, capturing the roar of applause that filled the studio. Dershowitz forced a thin smile, but his frustration was clear. He reached for his glass of water, buying himself time, while Jasmine remained poised, unshaken. The host leaned in. Asterisk, Representative Crockett, many viewers are saying this moment feels bigger than a debate, it feels like a turning point. What do you want the public to take away from this exchange? Asterisk. Jasmine didn't miss a beat. Asterisk, I want people to understand that the law is not a trophy for the privileged few. It's a shield for everyone. And if anyone, whether they're a professor, a judge, or a politician, tries to make it inaccessible, then it's our duty to call them out. That's why I won't back down. Asterisk. The audience cheered so loudly the host had to pause, grinning as he let the moment breathe. Even some of Dershowitz's usual supporters in the crowd were nodding reluctantly, recognizing that Crockett had seized control of the narrative. Jasmine's calm but fiery conviction had turned the tables. What began as an attack on her degree had transformed into a lesson on justice, delivered live for the nation to witness. Dershowitz leaned forward one last time, his voice sharper now, almost desperate. Asterisk, you speak well, Representative, but speaking and practicing law at the highest levels are not the same thing. History will judge whose record truly stands the test of time. Asterisk. Jasmine met his words with an unwavering stare. Asterisk, you're right, Alan. History will judge us. And history doesn't care about egos, it cares about impact. The question isn't whose resume looks shinier, it's whose work actually left people's lives better. Asterisk. The audience broke into another standing ovation, the loudest of the night. Even the host stood momentarily, clapping along with the crowd before regaining composure. Jasmine delivered her closing line with clarity and force. Asterisk, at the end of the day, I don't need to win debates with professors, I need to win justice for the people I serve. That's the only credential that matters to me. Asterisk. The studio went wild. Analysts on social media began firing off posts instantly, declaring Crockett's response one of the most powerful moments in recent political memory. Dershowitz sat silently, his expression tight, knowing the debate was no longer his. The studio lights gleamed as the host delivered his closing remarks, but it was clear the night belonged to Jasmine Crockett. Viewers at home flooded social media, clips of her sharp clapback spreading faster than the network could even upload the replay. Dershowitz sat stiffly, trying to maintain composure, but his silence spoke louder than any argument he had left. What was meant to be his takedown of her law degree had turned into a masterclass in composure, clarity, and conviction, from her. Jasmine stood as the program wrapped, shaking the host's hand before turning to Dershowitz. She offered him a polite nod, the ultimate display of confidence. She didn't need to gloat, her words had already done the work. As the cameras faded to black, commentators were already calling it asterisk, the moment Crockett redefined the debate. Asterisk experts admitted they were stunned, not by Dershowitz's attack, but by how thoroughly she dismantled it. By the end of the night, one thing was certain, Alan Dershowitz had tried to slam her credentials, but Jasmine Crockett's clapback didn't just stun the experts, it cemented her as a force no one could dismiss.